So if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you said something like this in the last 6 months. We just need more leads, right? Maybe you hired an agency, maybe you doubled your ad spend, maybe you started posting more content, doing more outreach, sending more cold emails, and maybe it helped a little, but the core problem didn't go away. And here's what I want to tell you, and I say this having worked with dozens of B2B companies who were stuck in this exact spot. Thing is, you don't have a leads problem, you have a positioning problem. And until you fix that, every dollar you put into marketing is going to underperform. And not because your tactics are wrong, but because the foundation underneath them is just cracked. So quick context on why I'm saying this. My name is Yarek. I run JPM Media. I've been doing this for about 6 years, and we work exclusively with B2B service businesses, coaches, consultants, and professional service firms. And in that time, my team and I have helped clients scale their sales teams and client acquisition systems from their very first clients all the way past $3 million in annual revenue. But here's the thing. I didn't figure all this out by just reading about it and by watching YouTube videos, but I built JPM Media using the exact same systems we implement into our client businesses. So every framework we bring to a client, I've lived personally first, and I've made the leads mistake myself. I've spent tons of money trying to fix a positioning problem with volume, and I learned the hard way what actually moves the needle. So when I say this pattern is costing you, I'm not theorizing. I've genuinely seen it from both sides. So here's what we're going to cover today. Let me paint a picture for you very, very clearly that you might recognize, right? Is your pipeline looks okay on the surface, right? Leads are okay. Leads are coming in, calls are happening, but close rates are low. Sales cycles are dragging. Prospects keep saying things like, we need to think about it, or we're talking with a few other companies, looking at a few other options, right? Or the worst one is, can you match this other price, right? So what do most founders do? They assume the top of the funnel is the problem. They need more volume, more eyeballs, more conversations. So they invest more ads, more sales development reps, more content, more outreach, more setters, right? And the same thing happens just at a higher volume. More leads, same close rate, more calls, same objections, more spend, and then same underwhelming return. This is the leads trap I mentioned. You treat a conversation problem like it's a volume problem, and it costs you. It's not in wasted budget, but in time and team morale and in the opportunity cost of not finding the real fix. So here's the truth. Leads aren't the constraint. The value signal you're sending to the market is the constraint, right? It's a positioning problem. When your positioning is weak, you attract the wrong buyers, people who don't really need what you do or who don't understand why you're the right choice. They come in skeptical, they price shop, they ghost, not because you failed to follow up correctly, but because they were never properly pre-sold on your value before the conversation started. Positioning is the work that happens before marketing, and when it's broken, marketing just can't save you. So let's talk about what positioning actually is, and let's define our terms, because positioning gets thrown around a lot, and it usually means a few different things to different people, right? At its core, positioning answers one question. Why you specifically for this specific customer or every other alternative? And I'm going to say it again because it's important. Why you specifically for this specific customer or every other alternative, right? It's not what you do or what do you do, not what are your features, but why does this buyer with this problem in this specific context pick you and feel confident that they made the right call? There are 5 components to strong positioning, and you need all 5 working together. So let's talk about number 1, the problem that you solve. Not just a generic problem, right? Like I help agencies get leads, right? The specific, painful, expensive problem that your best customers had before they ever found you. And if you can't describe it better than they can, you've lost the room before you started. On all of our discovery sessions with new clients, we usually spend an hour to an hour and a half just nailing the offer into this format. I help X, insert person, solve Y by using a method, right? That is your ideal value proposition. That is your offer. And until we can get that into a sentence, it's going to be very difficult to work from it. So once we have that down, we have to figure out who we serve, not just SMBs, not just B2B companies, right? Specific, what industry, what role, what stage, what situation. The tighter this is, the more your buyers feel like you built this solution for them. The next one is what makes you different. This is the one most companies get wrong because you say we're experienced, we're reliable, we're a true partner. These are not differentiators. Every competitor says the same thing. Your differentiation has to be specific, provable, and relevant to the decision your buyer is making, right? Think of AI consultants. If you go on LinkedIn, you will see 200,000 AI consultants. realistically, probably 5% or less are actually good at what they do. Everyone else is just trying to figure it out, or they're trying to educate people while they're learning at the same time, right? We want to really be different from the rest of the market, and not only in what we offer, but in how we position that, right? And this feeds in directly into number 4, right? Is the value that we deliver. Outcomes, right? Not outputs, not we run your paid ads, right? Not we build your software. What changes for your customer as a result of working with you? Revenue goes up, time gets reclaimed, risk eliminated. That's the value frame. And when we put that all into one sentence, we're actually moving in the right direction in terms of having that statement in a way that we can actually work with it. And this feeds in perfectly to the value that we deliver because it helps you be different, right? So we want to talk about the outcomes, not the outputs, right? Not we run your paid ads, not we build your software, not we'll make your business AI friendly, right? What changes for your customer as a result of working with you? That's the question. Does revenue go up? Does time get reclaimed? Does risk get eliminated? That's the value frame, and that's how we position it, right? We have to have something valuable that we can then present in terms of using our output. So for instance, we use paid ads to insert deliverable, right? You're using an output to create the outcome, and why are you different in the way that you use it? So now let's talk about the alternatives that you're being compared to, because positioning doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists relative to other options. So your buyers are always comparing you to something, even if it's doing nothing or handling it in-house. If you don't define the competitive frame, your buyer will, and they probably won't frame it in their favor. Think about how many people you probably get cold outreach from, right? You immediately put them into one group, and they're immediately starting at a disadvantage when they're trying to get a call with you. We have to make sure that you are sticking out from the alternatives in the way that you actually do your outreach, in the way that you have those conversations, in the way that you bring people into your network, right? Those are the things that actually move a business forward rather than having it stuck in one specific loop of outreach, no response, outreach, no response. And that's the frame we need to talk about, because if you are really good at what you do and you're confident you can deliver results for your clients, that isn't enough nowadays. You still have to stand out because there's a million other people offering the same thing you are. You need to stand out. You need to be personable. People like to buy from people. People don't like to deal with automations or, like when you call your bank and you have some automation pickup and you got to dial numbers. Nobody wants that. People want to talk to a person, right? So be that person. Take the time. The only time that I'd really advise against that is once your team reaches, 1 to 2 closers plus. At that point, we can talk about, different sales systems. But right now, the most important thing is making sure that if you are starting out, you have an entire system built around why you are the number one guy. And I stole this from Alex Hormozy, but you can obviously sell this by saying, hey, to those bigger guys, you're just a number, right? When you work with me, I'll give you the exact same deliverable with more precision, and you have my phone number. You can call me whenever you want, and I'll still be able to solve those problems for you. And that's how you build a relationship, right? So when these 5 things are clear, aligned, and communicated consistently, something honestly remarkable happens, right? Because your best fit buyers recognize themselves in your marketing immediately. They come to calls ready and sold on the category and already leaning towards you, right? Sales cycles shrink, close rates go up, and price resistance drops dramatically. It's not magic. It's just what strong positioning really does. So now, part 3, I want to talk about how to diagnose your positioning problem, right? So how do you know if positioning is actually your issue, right? Because some people will be like, oh, our positioning sucks. Well, realistically, it might just be, a funnel problem. But what actually does positioning mean in terms of the diagnostic signals to look for? So signal 1, if your close rate is low, but lead quality feels inconsistent, some deals close fast and easily, and others drag, go cold, or die at the finish line with no clear explanation, right? This inconsistency usually means you're attracting a mixed bag, right? Some buyers who are a genuine fit, and a lot of noise from buyers who were never the right fit to begin with, right? And the ones that close fast, they already understood your value before they talked to you. And the reasoning is, if you ever had a referral, you already know that person and you have an in. That's why referrals close so easily. That is what your offer is supposed to do. Put you in a position of trust and make yourself look like the one person that can actually solve their problem, right? And then when we talk about the ones that drag on, always saying, I'll think about it, I'll come back to you, they didn't, right? They didn't feel that positioning, they didn't feel that trust. And they're trying to figure it out during the sales process, which is literally the worst possible time. So let's talk about signal two, is you're competing on price more than you'd like, right? When buyers treat you as interchangeable with your competitors, they default to a price as the deciding factor, right? That's not a pricing problem, it's a differentiation problem. If they fully understood what makes you the right choice, price would become secondary. This problem is a little bit different, or the signal is a little bit different, because sometimes it could genuinely come down to your closing abilities or your closing your sales team abilities. But realistically, if this is a common objection, either your sales team isn't building enough trust or your marketing isn't building enough trust. So it realistically comes down to the positioning of your offer, right? That one sentence, that statement of what you actually do. So signal number 4, your best customers would describe you very differently than your marketing does. And this is a big one, and I'll say it slower one more time. Your best customers would describe you very differently than your marketing does, right? Go ask your top 3 clients why they hired you, right? Why they stayed and what they'd say to someone considering you for their business, right? If their answer sounds nothing like your website or, a pitch deck or your entire funnel, your VSLs, your videos, your explanation, your LinkedIn, right? There's a positioning gap. The market's perception of you doesn't match the reality of what you actually deliver. Signal number 5 is the one I kind of briefly touched on, but your sales team is doing too much education early in the call, right? If every discovery call starts with you explaining what your category is, why this type of solution matters, and why the problem is worth solving, that's work that positioning should be doing for you, right? They shouldn't be coming in to learn and be educated on the process and why they need it, right? They want to come and learn and be educated on the price, the structure, how it's actually going to work if they move forward, right? You're starting, a couple steps behind if they don't know that coming into the call. So before they ever get on a call, if your marketing isn't pre-selling the problem and the category that they're in, you're asking your salespeople to do that work live, and that's very insufficient and expensive. So let's talk about if 2 or more of those signals apply to you, positioning is your constraint, not leads, not your channel, not tactics, right? So here's how to actually fix it. And I'm going to give you a 4-step process, right? So step 1, interview your best customers. If you don't have customers, do a role play with one of the AIs that you use so that you can actually figure out where you stand in the actual system, right? Now, I'm not talking about a survey with your clients. I'm talking about actual conversations. And the 3 main questions I want you to ask is, what was happening in your business that made you look for a solution like ours, right? You can do this on a sales call, right? If you don't have those clients yet. But you have to make sure they're a perfect lead, a perfect ICP, someone you can genuinely close and actually help, right? So what was happening in your business that made you look for a solution like ours? Number 2, what made you choose us over the other options? Massive question, right? Why did you go with us? Is there any different companies that you were considering? Did I stand out? Did my sales team stand out? Was it our process? Was it our systems? Was it our marketing? Was it my LinkedIn page, right? What is actually a differentiator that they recognized? Whatever they tell you, dig into that, right? That's a perfect client. That's a perfect ICP. Those are the people that you can actually work with. Real quick, if you're watching this and want this kind of thinking applied directly to your business, that is exactly what my team and I do. We work with B2B service businesses, coaches, consultants, and professional service firms to diagnose and build out their client acquisition systems. Link is in the description to book a call with me or someone on my team. Now let's get back into the video. Number 3, what has changed since you started working with us? We run these interviews with each and every single one of our clients after that 3 or 4 month period. That is the question that we use for our testimonial videos, right? What has changed since you started working with us? My lead volume went up, my close rate ran up, my marketing started doubling, right? What actually changed? What works? What are tangible results that you can pull out of someone or pull out of your client that actually shows your value for what you did for their business, right? Number 2 is going to be define your ICP, your ideal customer profile, with ruthless specificity. I'm not kidding. I see companies doing $2 million, $3 million a year, still not too sure what their ICP is. And it's insane because most ICP definitions are too broad to be even useful, right? Series B SaaS companies with a sales team of 10 to 30 reps trying to reduce ramp time is an ICP, right? The more specific you get, the more resonant your positioning becomes. Yes, you may feel like you're narrowing your market, right? But what you're actually doing is increasing your signal to noise ratio, right? The right buyers see themselves in your positioning immediately, and the wrong buyers self-select out. That's a feature. That's not a bug. That saves your sales team a ton of time and a ton of effort, and they're only focusing on the ones you can actually help and the ones that will actually buy. So leading into step 3, identify your one true differentiator, right? Not just a list of your strengths, but the one most defensible, most relevant, most provable point of a difference, right? The thing that when a buyer hears it makes them say, yep, that's exactly what I need. It might be your methodology, your specialization in a specific vertical, your proprietary data or tooling, your team's unique background, whatever it is, it has to be specific enough that your competitors can't just copy the claim, right? It has to be tied to something real about how you operate. So let's talk about rebuilding your messaging from the outside in, and that's important, right? Why are we starting on the outside? Because once you have the insight from your customer interviews, the ICP and the differentiator, rebuild your core messaging in this specific order. Start with the customer's problem in their words. If you're going to throw in a bunch of mumbo jumbo and some jargon about, some industry specific terms, fine, but make sure it's understandable and not overly complicated. Don't use words like cutting edge, proprietary systems. Nobody cares about that anymore, right? This is how can you personalize a solution to their problem, right? Number 2, explain why most solutions fail to solve their problem. That doesn't mean that you're talking about 30 minutes of why you shouldn't go with someone else, but say, well, if you ran paid ads in the past and they haven't worked and you've tried cold email, maybe try a system like organic content, right? Or you've tried organic, you've tried cold email, you haven't really had the budget for paid ads. Why don't you try a more conversation-based model, right? There's different ways to position that, and that is where the value really comes in. Number 3, introduce your approach and what makes it different. It really stems from point number 2, but why is it different, right? For paid ads, you're spending tons of money on budget. You're buying attention. For cold email, you're kind of playing around with copy and hoping someone finds it interesting enough to, raise their hand and say yes. For organic, you're putting in a ton of volume, ton of time, many hours into actually putting content out there that's valuable and actually is going to target the people that you want to work with. But then we think about more conversation-based models, right? Let's say that's what we're doing, right? We're focusing on how can we get you organic conversations with your ideal customers without BS cold outbound and no cold email that's direct, right? That is what the entire system will be built around, right? You're saying, well, not this because you don't have the budget. And you use it as like a Venn diagram, right? You're saying, well, you have this budget and you have these systems. Which of them actually overlap and which ones actually work, right? Paid ads, ton of budget, and maybe not going to find the best people just because you need a ton of budget to find good people, right? So that's the positioning of how we actually introduce the approach and how we make it different, right? If you guys want another video on that, let me know because this is super important. Number 4 is prove it with outcomes and evidence, right? That is the most important thing of this entire system, right? Is testimonials, pictures, videos, other companies. People see themselves in your testimonial videos and say, oh, okay, this guy runs the same company that I do. Maybe these guys could actually help, right? Very easily said, very difficult to do. I don't think I have to explain that one too much. I've talked about it in other videos before, but you really need to have the evidence of what you're actually able to do and what you're claiming you're able to do, right? Number 5, make the next step obvious, right? Because if they don't know what's next and you're getting a question, okay, what are next steps, right? Unless it's a sales call and they're ready to move forward. But if you have someone questioning what your process is actually doing, how it's going to work, it's just going to hurt you more in the process when you have to over-explain things. They have to know the sequencing very early on. So this sequence works because it meets the buyer where they are. They come in with a problem and not a shopping list, right? So when your message starts with their problem, not your product, you create immediate recognition and trust. And once this messaging is solid, then you layer marketing on top of it. Ads, content, outreach, whatever channels make sense. But now those channels are amplifying a clear signal, not just broadcasting noise. So here's the bottom line. If your marketing isn't performing the way that you need it to, resist the instinct to just turn up the volume, right? More spend on a weak foundation does not fix the foundation. It just makes the problem more expensive. So do the diagnosis first. Look for the signals, and if positioning is the issue, and for most B2B companies that are stuck It really is. So go back to the source, talk to your customers, get specific about who you serve and why you win, and rebuild your messaging from there. Positioning isn't just a branding exercise, right? It's a revenue lever. And when it's right, everything downstream and down funnel works better. So if this is useful, I'd encourage you to share it with someone on your team who owns marketing or sales strategy. This is exactly the kind of conversation that unlocks a ton of wasted effort. And if you want to go deeper on any of this, whether it's ICP process, the customer interview framework, or how to rebuild your messaging, drop a comment below and let me know what would be the most helpful video to make next. I'll see you in the next one.